So being authentic online and being authentic in real life can't be the same thing. So you have to learn how to align with that digital authenticity and create it and create values that move you towards it. I think it's not as easy as people say. I think there's no rule book, there's no guidebook. I'd say the thing I've been using to guide me is like what I've been writing about in my dissertation, the existentialist definition of authenticity, which is every action you make is a vote towards who you want to be.
One of the key ways to stand out online nowadays is to be digitally authentic. And that just means to be yourself. But that can be incredibly confusing to many of us. And to other digital creators that are out there online, Will and I dive deep into what that actually means. And if you'd like to hear more about what digital authenticity means or what it is, I will leave Will's contact details in the show notes below. Thank you very much and enjoy. I do think that it is going to be very interesting to look back on these videos and back on like what we've been writing about, and just I think it would be interesting to be able to see like what we thought and what we were doing.
I think that's a cool thing about leaving a digital footprint, because it's there forever. Like if I dropped off and stopped posting, all my stuff would still be there, and that would still like haunt me for the rest of my life. That would follow me around, or like my kids could find out and go, "Oh, what was that period of your life about?" Or employers could go, "Remember when you tweeted good morning everyone except people who don't wear enough masks?" So I think that's one thing that's inspired me to keep going, is that if you don't keep going, then one, what else are you going to do? But two, how stupid are you going to look all those times you posted? Oh, just keep motivated, and oh, just keep posting content, and then you just don't bother turning up anymore. I think that's something that keeps me going.
There's no way back now, right? We've said all the stuff. I guess we just got to do it now.
Yeah, I think that's one good thing about it. I don't know when else. I think I said this in my space at the weekend, but when you set up a new profile that's got new people on it and not people you know, and you put a bio in of stuff that you're intending to promote or create towards, and you can offset the person you want to be and then just move towards that in how you post and what you create and how you spend your time. And it's quite a good way of progressing forward, is creating an ideal self and then understanding you're not quite there, and then it gives you steps to get towards it. I think it's quite a good way of thinking about it.
I think so. I deleted my old Twitter account. Don't know about you.
Really?
But, yeah, I had some. I found it and I looked back at what I was talking about when I was 16.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That guy needed some work, man. But
yeah, I think you just need to get laid.
I had a girlfriend at the time, and it was a whole bunch of like conversations between her and me saying like, "Oh, I love you so much."
Oh, nice. I think the next Twitter space you're on, I think you need to get Ronnie and Jeremy to do the roast of Bronson. I think that'd be good.
I think so. I do have a podcast coming up with Ronnie, which will be
Oh,
might break the internet, man. It might break the internet.
I've got to listen to that.
Oh, Ronnie's a G.
I don't think I've been in a space where he's not spoken as well either. He loves it.
You know, we created him, huh? We created a monster. Yeah, once he started, now he's unstoppable.
I know that's
now.
the thing. Like, it was the first time we were on, wasn't it, when he spoke? Because he was like, "Oh, I don't know about speaking," and that's one thing that Spaces is good for. I think in terms of if you're putting yourself out there, first you like soak up other people's stuff. So maybe someone you like and follow, they're doing a big space, so you can kind of sit in there and no one's going to see that you're in there. And you just absorb what they're saying, and then you go into a slightly smaller one, with slightly less people. Maybe you put a little question in the chat, and then the next time you listen to one and you go, "Oh, do you know what? I've heard everyone else do it. Now I want to put myself out there," and it kind of gets you used to connecting with people and putting yourself out there, especially if you want to do things like short form. You're going to have to get used to the sound of your own voice and thinking on your feet and engaging critically with people and their opinions. I think it's a really, really good introduction for people.
Yeah. How do you find hosting Twitter Spaces now?
I enjoy it. I don't know like how much research or anything you do, but for the last one we did, there was quite a few people in there. There's over 250 people in throughout the whole time of it. And all I was going off was like 5 1 sentence bullet points. We had the topic of growth, and then Swaran had written like 6 words, and one was like Q&A, one was like audience building. There was just literally nothing to go off. But I think because I've seen other people do it, and I'm quite outgoing anyway. I think you can kind of just, and I trust my brain to get myself through situations like that. Same as like exams at school. I just rock up, do like no revision, and then just like trust myself to get through it. It's kind of the same thing. Like, but the thing is, the difference is like you've got a lot of people there watching. So if you do like mess up, then there is that kind of embarrassment aspect. But I'm not bothered like that. Luckily, it does help.
It's fascinating how you're able to do, what was that, an hour and a half based off 6 lines?
Yeah,
That is crazy.
I thought it was quite successful, to be honest. I thought it went quite well.
Yeah, I mean, I've been telling everyone about that space to go back and listen to it. It was
Well,
really good.
I put it in. I put the new tweet out for it, and then I put the other one underneath, and then it got like 30 more listens or something, which is quite good.
Yeah, man,
I think we don't really know how far-reaching our stuff can be until you kind of create a core group of people that listen to you. Because otherwise, you can have the best ideas in the world, but if you don't broadcast them in the right way, you can't market yourself. If you can't shout your message from the rooftops, then you're just going to be whispering into the wind, and no one's going to care about what you have to say. So that's why I think a platform like Spaces, where you get 50 people in every week listening to your ideas, then the network effect of people like yourself going, oh, this is really good, you should go back and listen to that. And it snowballs and snowballs, and more people get to know your ideas. You get to interact with people who like your ideas. It's a win-win as far as I'm concerned.
I think so. You never know who is listening or what people are saying behind your back, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I'm sure there was at least someone.
Jeremy hosted it because I'm now in New Zealand. I'm starting to make a new group of friends on this time zone. And
Yeah, you need them.
yeah, Jeremy and Dallas, they're very active in my
Oh, they're your
time zone.
boys. Yeah,
And so they're always on Twitter Spaces. And
yeah, man.
I hopped onto one of Jeremy hosts a Twitter Space every Tuesday.
Hmm.
And I hopped on and I was half doing something, half not listening while he was talking about multitasking. I said hello and I said, hey man, how's it going? Blah, blah, blah. I don't know how to multitask at all. And then there were 17 people in the space. I looked away. I came back, and then there was like 60 people in the space.
Really?
I was
Did
like,
he
all
get
right.
certain count in there?
There was, because like you never know who's watching, right? And this one guy came in, and he had like 250,000 followers, and
Jeez, that
he
would
said,
have been
hey,
ideal.
I was just talking on my own space. I just closed it up, and I told everyone to come hop over here, and so
Jeez,
they just jammed for like 2 hours. And it
jeez.
was,
It's not just going back and forth.
yeah, they're just going back and forth, just chatting. And if you look on Jeremy's page, there was like 600 people who attended that Twitter space on like a Tuesday.
I think
It
he's
was,
one of the most like underfollowed people that I know
yeah,
of. Anyway, he's like got. I know he doesn't necessarily care that much about following, which kind of like will probably hinder his growth. But in terms of like message and core values and entrepreneurship and someone who actually walks the walk, I think you're not going to find like a better coach motivator than
I
Jeremy.
know. That's the clip. I've been clipping everything that people have been saying and sending them over to them. But
You send it straight to him.
I'll send it straight to them.
It's a great
Side note
advert.
tangent: there is a
You can't be invoicing me for that.
there. I'll cut this part out. But there is a there's a beautiful clip I have of Ronnie just hyping us up. So I'll send it over to you.
I'll just retweet that every day. When I lose a couple followers, just to G myself back up, I'll listen to it.
Oh, that is the stuff. Do you start? I've started to talk to people the way I tweet. Do you do this?
What you mean the other way around? As
Like
in, what you say, like GM
text.
to people?
GM. I'll just leave that one.
GM, man.
But like the structure of a tweet, I like
Oh,
use
I
it in a
had,
message.
yeah, I know what you mean. So, like, I used to just be proper lazy, like reply to people every like week or so, and then it'd be a longer message. So I just send a massive body of text. Whereas now I like slice it up a little bit to make it more readable. I think that's just force of habit. But I don't like, yeah, I don't text my mum GM or anything like that.
Crazy stuff, man. All right, let's talk about digital authenticity.
Okay.
I have 6 bullet points to go through here.
Wow, you're riffing. You're riffing.
We'll just rip through it. But yeah, because selfishly, I'm making short form for a living, and I do find it quite conflicting, and I thought we could talk about this one for a second. Um, how do you think short form content is impacting us as a society online?
Um, I think in terms of information distribution, it's a good thing because people are seeing things in a way that they couldn't before, and people who don't listen to 1 hour podcasts can still get the necessary information or what people deem as necessary information from like 3 1 minute sound bites. But human attention can't be contained to like just 1 minute sound bites for hours on end, like on TikTok, where you're 30 seconds on entertainment, then 30 seconds on a sport thing, then 30 seconds on drama, then 30 seconds about TV. And there's all these like flashing lights inside your brain, and it's just completely disorienting. It's like being in Vegas all the time and just going around, running around all the little slot machines. Like, oh, go on this, I'll go on this, I'll go on this, I'll go on this. And your brain just is going to be so depleted of dopamine, and you're just going to feel like bad by the end of it. I mean, I don't really consume that much short form, but I think it can only really be in the long term a bad thing, especially when people like there's so much knowledge out there that isn't going to be applicable in short form. Like a book, you can't put that in short form unless someone's like taken an excerpt out of it. But for the most part, we're going to lose all that knowledge. And then you think about every single podcast that's ever been about anything interesting. And if we only take the sound bites out, then there's all that knowledge that's lost. There's stories generally, but passed down culturally, they can't be put into sound bites easy. So it's more about what we lose as much as the damage it's doing to us as well, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting ride with short form content. I think there is a way to do it authentically. And I think going along this journey, I will find it eventually. I'm going to be pushing the boundaries a little bit and then coming back and then finding where it is. But it is nice,
I
like
was going to say, do
tweets.
you think
Like
it's more important of doing it right than doing it to make more money?
yeah, it's going to be an interesting ride. Like I read the other day, I watched a whole video the other day, a long form video on Vox, and they were saying that people nowadays are struggling to hear because of all the captions that we're putting on videos.
Oh God, yeah, yeah, I
That
didn't think
is
about that.
that is a crazy thing to think about. That people are not being able to understand what others are saying unless it has a caption on it.
If you think
Oh,
about that though, it's the same with like mothers having loads of C sections all the time. Then like the birth canal just doesn't need to be as wide, so it just constricts, and then more people need to have C sections. It's the same with short form. If we constantly train our brains over like generations to only consume really short content, then just our attention span's just going to shrink, and our brain's going to shrink.
I've never compared short form to C sections before, but
I
thank
don't
you
think
very
anyone.
much.
That's going to get me cancelled. That one.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine, man. That is crazy stuff. C sections. Wow, beautiful stuff. All right, enough filler words, man. So, more bullet points. With so many people making content from day one, what is the importance of staying authentic
Will?
I think it's your unique selling point. It's something that can't leave you by definition of you being you. And maybe it might take a year or 5 years or longer to gather an audience that resonate with you. But then it depends if you're in it for that reason, if you're in it to express yourself and to find people that think similarly to you, and if you want to gain knowledge and pass knowledge back down to people who like yourself maybe 6 months ago needed someone like who you are now, then I think that's the only way to do it. And you can't lose sight, you can't be replaced. You're not going to get no one can be you better than you can be you, especially if you go about it in the right way and keep improving and keep offset the best version of yourself and move towards it and pass that on.
Yeah. How are you finding your journey in being authentic online? Because I know it can be quite hard, especially for me at times. I'm finding it, but how are you finding it being authentic online?
I think it's interesting because being authentic online isn't the same as being authentic in real life. Because it depends which platform you're on. It depends. As a human, you're limited to your five senses and how you look visually and how you think. Whereas online, you're condensed down to a profile, an avatar, a bio, how many followers you have. So being authentic online and being authentic in real life can't be the same thing. So you have to learn how to align with that digital authenticity and create it and create values that move you towards it. I think it's not as easy as people say. I think there's no rule book, there's no guidebook. I'd say the thing I've been using to guide me is like what I've been writing about in my dissertation, the existentialist definition of authenticity, which is every action you make is a vote towards who you want to be. So I've been using that as a guide. You get things wrong, you have to try things, you feel like an imposter. It's strange putting yourself out there. You think you're the most important person in the room and the least important person in the room at the same time. In my newsletter, I was actually just writing it now. I was talking about how it's like being at a school disco and you're the new kid and you haven't had any lessons with these people, and the cool kids are in a corner talking to the girls with the cool trainers on, like dancing, and you're there and you're like, I don't know how to really interact. You're still you, but you've kind of got to learn this new Twitter sphere mode of interaction, how to talk to people, how to interact, how to engage, how to create the identity that's going to create your own freedom and your own values. And it's been interesting, but it's nowhere near as people say just be yourself. It's not nearly as simple as that.
It is. I'm finding it incredibly difficult. I think I'm going in the right direction,
Yeah.
but it is very hard to know like what I should be sharing and what I should not be sharing.
Yeah.
I just posted a video of myself in the shower yesterday, so I'm not too sure how that's gonna go.
I think overshare. People don't talk about oversharing and authenticity, and it's I kind of just actually wrote about this like an hour ago. Let me see if I can get up what I exactly said, because it's kind of interesting on the fact that people are so open and honest, but it can be to your detriment because you can easily get it wrong. What I wrote about was comparing it to when you're really drunk on nights out and you say things to someone who you're not really that close to, and then you go, "Oh my god, I can't believe I shared that intimate part of myself with them." And I think the intoxicating element of being online is that everyone's wrapped up in this sort of bubble and everyone's inspiring people to, oh yeah, share this or share that or be open, be authentic, and you can quite easily be intoxicated by that. And like on a night out, you can overshare and then it can leave you a bit traumatized and you feel a little bit like you've done yourself a disservice and given you part of yourself that people didn't deserve to see. So I think people don't talk about that enough. I think that's quite interesting food for thought.
Yeah. How do we find the line, or how do you figure out what you want to share and what you don't want to share?
I think it depends how like introverted or extroverted you are, because what I'd recommend is if you're slightly more introverted, take smaller steps. If you're extroverted, you'll be a little bit more adventurous and more outrageous and a bit more aggressive in your approach. Just because the anxiety cost is less. So if there's not as much of a if there's not as much of an expense to you, then go quicker. But I mean, you don't want you don't want to try and make progress and then that knocks you back. So if you put yourself out there too much and then you recoil from the response you get, or you recoil from just the fact that it's out there and then you kind of regret it, then that's going to take more work to get back to where you were before. So just take small steps and like, yeah, just try and move forward as slowly as possible, but in the right way.
So what you're saying is I should not have posted videos of myself in the shower.
I don't know, like it's up to you. Like I would do. I've done something like that on my own
Yeah.
account. Like, do you remember when people were doing like ice bucket challenges and stuff all the time?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That
Like
was a thing.
people have done stuff like that, but then I think with the difference between what you did and something like the ice bucket challenges, like I remember when my mates at school, after it was a thing, like a couple of years later, like we'd get each other's up. Like I didn't actually do one, but we'd get your mates up and like bully them with the fact that they'd done this ice bucket challenge. The difference is between the ice bucket challenge and what you've done is that the ice bucket challenge was just like a viral meme sort of thing, and people said they donated to charity, but most people actually didn't, right? Whereas yours is in the name of self development and in aid of a 30-day challenge that's going to improve you, and you're just documenting that and passing that back down to people who follow you. So I think that's more inspiring and motivational rather than just a viral sort of challenge that people did as a kid and their mum filmed it and put it on Facebook.
All right. I'm in the clear. I'm in the clear.
I
Man,
think so. I mean,
but I think we will figure out, like, I'm sure there'll be moments where we share a bit too much and then we realize, oh, that is a line that we don't want to talk about.
well, I think that's a good thing about being like all the way down here. If you've like Twitter functions as a meritocracy, you essentially you have to earn every single follower. So when you have 10,000 or 100,000, then you should have done all this, a lot of this, like finding your voice and finding out what you're comfortable in sharing and finding out where your comfort zone is, rather than if you get to that point and you've not done any of that work, then it's going to be even more terrifying putting stuff out. So then you're never ever going to get to that point. Whereas if you can get comfortable with sharing 100 people who you really are, or who you think you really are, who you want to be online, then you can do it with 1,000, then you can do it with 10,000. I think you've got to do it small steps, which people don't really want to hear. Everyone wants to think there's a quick answer, but that's why you have to go through slow growth. Because if you go all the way to 1,000 and you've never really found where the line is between what's okay to share and what isn't okay to share, and who you're going to appeal to, and have you found out your ideal reader? Have you identified your true fan? If you haven't done that work, then you can't do it once you start getting to the bigger numbers.
Yeah. I've heard that a lot, that you should really figure out your voice before you become a large influencer in the space. Do you think that you can still change when you are a large influencer in the space, or is that what you just meant by you just have a lot more pressure on you with having a lot more eyes watching you, and you might not want to change?
I think there's that, and then it's like there's if you take 10 steps to the right, but you want to go to the left, then you're going to have to walk 10 steps back and then start walking to the left to go all the way to the way you want to go. Like I've seen people do it. Did you follow Art of Life and Ben Merrick? Have you followed him? His account was at like 400,000, and then he changed it to a personal brand, and changed it to like his name, and now he tweets about him. But you've got to undo work and then like start again, basically. And he's talking about how he'd like lose. I think he said he lost like 40,000 followers from it. But obviously, if you've got 400,000, you've got 40,000 to lose. But it's a bit harder. You've got to undo the work. So I think it's the best way to start as a authentic personal brand and take small steps all the way up as far as the people see that you deserve.
Yeah. Yep, that makes sense. Yeah. Out of Life, Ben Merrick.
Yeah.
I do think that people like to follow others for like a specific reason. So like you and I'm going to say this. I think that we have a connection, Will, and I don't really care about like what you are talking about. Like I find it interesting.
Yeah.
There are people that I follow, for example, who are experts in like building a brand or experts in LinkedIn marketing, um, link video production, and I think that they started to talk about a different topic all of a sudden. As nice as I think I am, I think I'd be like, oh wow, that's not why I'm following you. I guess you could say. So
Yeah. I think
it's a harsh
by
fact of
merit,
life.
by merit of how big the numbers are, even if you're just at 1,000, and then you completely change tact, which is fine. Like obviously, if that's you think you're moving on the right path. Let's say you're at 10,000 and you've been talking about something. You can, by merit of how many people follow you, like you're saying, you follow people for if you actually know them, their personality. You can probably only have real connections with maybe 100 or 200 of them. So the other 99,800, they're following you specifically for your bio and what that says you do. If you're not delivering on that, or if you completely change it, then people don't like your personality only comes across as a byproduct of the thing you're talking about.
Yeah, I think yeah, make connections, make authentic connections, and follow it through. I saw. Do you know Emma Chamberlain
The name rings a bell on Twitter.
on YouTube? I know
Oh,
I'm
okay.
talking about a different platform here. Emma Chamberlain is one of the most famous people on YouTube. And a couple of months ago, she completely changed, like you said, with the Ben Merrick. She was making videos in one style, and then she completely changed into like this new, authentic style of videos that is. She's always been an honest person, but there's a very distinct change in her style.
Mm-hmm.
And because people cared and liked about who she was as a person, it went perfectly fine actually. Like not
Yeah.
she started even like growing after this because people realized that she is this authentic person. She is real and she's not. Yeah, it was a very interesting thing, and I've been studying how she did it. So it is possible, but
I think it's easier in longer form videos because I heard someone talking about when Joe Rogan was coming under abuse from like every mainstream media source, and his viewers have seen hundreds of hours of his conversations. So if you try and paint Joe out to be a racist or a bigot or um, like um, like a right wing fascist, then everyone who's actually watched any of his conversations has spent so much time with him that they know him so intimately that they can just completely ignore those assertions because they know that they've seen through empirical data that it's not like that. So it must be similar with her, I guess. They've seen her through a certain lens of like whatever she was doing, like lifestyle vlogging or whatever it was. And then because they've seen so much time of her, then they can kind of take that lens away and still accept her for the person who they saw she was through the lens, because there's just so much time they've spent with her. Whereas I think it's a bit more difficult on something like a writing platform to get yourself across that well. So I think it's a bit more difficult on Twitter.
yeah, it's a very interesting point that you bring up because we're going to be talking on social media for a very long time,
Yeah.
and people are going to look through everything that we're saying and they can find snippets of what we said, maybe even when we're talking now and figuring out our voice, and they're going to try and say that we are that person back in the day. We might have changed our point of view by the time we get there, but it's a very interesting thing to think about. Yeah, I do completely understand what you mean with Joe. Like, I haven't watched Joe for a couple of years now. But I think I've watched upwards of 500 Joe
Yeah,
Rogan
that's
episodes.
what I mean. You spent so much time with him that if anyone tries, he's uncancelable. If anyone says he's this, you just go, no, no, he isn't. And that's the end of the
Yeah,
conversation.
yeah. I definitely disagree with a lot of what Joe talks about, but I've listened to him so much that I understand that he's coming from a good place,
Yeah,
and he's also just trying to figure out life, and he's talking. I like how he talks with people that he disagrees with.
so
I think
important.
I was thinking about this the other day with Jordan Peterson, because
Hmm.
I'm not too up to date with Jordan Peterson, to be honest, but I I do see a trend where, like, if you if there's anything that someone says that you disagree with, then you cannot learn anything from them, or you cannot,
Yeah, it's
like,
crazy.
do you think about this sort of stuff? Because I know Jordan Peterson has like views that I disagree with, but
Hmm.
I've also learned so much from him as well. And now that I'm seeing that people are like attacking him for some of his views, like, what do you think about this? Do you think that, like, it's a bad thing that we cancel people because we have one point of view that is different from theirs?
Yeah, it's crazy, and especially when this is like the bubble we're enclosing towards, or aiming at, or target demographics, or people on the street that you walk past. These are the people that believe these sorts of things, that marginalizing people's viewpoints, generally because you disagree with one specific thing they said or didn't say, or was misconstrued, or they made a generalization, or a generalization was made about them, that you can just say that, oh, nothing they can say is of value. Let's not even assume that they can have a voice. Let's just take them away and cart them into the jail of the internet with like Alex Jones and Stefan Molyneux and people like that. Especially, I find it annoying with people like Jordan Peterson, because there's so much that the people who are so vehemently against what he says are probably some of the people who could learn the most from him and his assertions about the individual, and the importance of taking responsibility, and the importance of like just having something to aim towards, and taking the cross on your shoulders and moving towards somewhere that's going to be, it's going to be a struggle, and it's going to be a difficult ride. But what's the alternative? Are you just going to sit and wallow in your sorrows, or are you going to take something on your shoulders? And he was kind of a catalyst for me in terms of like being an 18-year-old boy. I say boy, and I mean boy. A child in an adult's body, who was reckless and a bit wild and a bit rough around the edges, and reading his book sort of steered me on a. I wouldn't be on this journey right now, I don't think, without reading some of his stuff quite early on. I think no one else was giving young men, or anybody who's an adolescent and coming of age and who needed orienting in the world, no one else connected with me. And I don't think even in wider culture there was many people who sort of appealed to that demographic, because it's only people I know from where I grew up, and people I know from around my country, and it seems like all over the world, a lot of people are really lost and really desperate, and lack meaning and connection. And we spend so much time on stuff called social media, and everyone's just so depraved of social connections, and people work jobs they hate and spend their time unconsciously in algorithms that drive sales for big companies, and the little man ends up losing, and nobody seems to care. And no matter whether you're a boy or a girl, then this sort of things happens, and we see it everywhere around us. The whole society is symptomatic of it, and I don't see any politicians coming up with any good answers. So if we shut down people speaking with messages of taking responsibility and taking action and speaking to the underprivileged and the underserved, then who else is going to do it? I don't see anyone else doing it. So if we take these voices away, then those people are going to be even worse off.
Yeah. You were talking the other day on Twitter about separating the art from the artist,
Oh yeah, yeah,
if that was possible. And I did really, I've been thinking a lot about that as well, with how, like, Kanye has been cancelled, and
yes. Do you still
I
listen to
don't,
him?
I don't follow the news that that well, but I know he said some quite controversial stuff. Do I listen to
Yeah.
his
Well,
music? Man, his music is art, man. Some of it is just
You
beautiful.
can't ignore it.
Yeah. It's, what do you think? What are your points of view? Like, do you separate the art from the artist, or is it so connected between the art and the artist that it's just they're connected completely?
I think you have to separate it. I think beauty is something. So our thoughts aren't our thoughts, right? So if you just sit and meditate for a while, you don't know what thought's going to come into your head. You don't know what thought's going to come to your head next. Neither do I really. So I think our thoughts, like especially if you think about it in terms of art, beauty is sort of this perfect form that exists beyond humanity in another tier of another tier of reality, say, and it gets beamed back into people, and then people interpret it and beam it back into the world. And it's not something that, like, if ask an artist how they produce a piece of work, or if you ask a writer how did they write this piece of fiction, they'll tell you, I don't know, it just there's a process. It takes over you, a muse. It just happens. And I think there has to be some sort of spiritual component to art that kind of negates slight responsibility of the artist, especially when it's not easily replicable. It's not like science where you do the same thing every time you get the same result. Art is unpredictable. It's sort of ethereal. I think it's sort of divine as well. I think that there's that. I offer that component to it, whether it's there or not, or whether it just helps me conceptualize it. Maybe they're different things, but I just think that you can't. And especially, I read. Have you read Lolita?
I've not.
So, it's
Tell
a
me about
book.
this.
It's a novel about basically a paedophile, but it's the most redeeming paedophile in the world, and he sexually abuses his stepdaughter. So the whole time you're reading it, going, I really don't want to like him because he's a paedophile. But the author writes it in a certain way that it's as redeeming as possible. It's the most charitable interpretation of a paedophile, and if people say, "Oh, you shouldn't have been able to write this book because it's encouraging paedophilia," like it's you could take it the angle of, "Oh, this person's a paedophile, but they're not that bad, so paedophiles should be like allowed in society," which is actually strange because people now are talking about taking away the term paedophile and calling them a minor attracted person or something like that, which is crazy. But that's another discussion. But the book, you could say, shouldn't have been written because it's promoting paedophilia, and the author is a paedophile, and he shouldn't have written it. But we need to have artistic integrity where artists are allowed to produce anything without fear of people coming after them and saying they are the art they produced. Because if he doesn't ask those questions and interrogate this charitable interpretation of someone who is demonic and despicable, then who's going to do that, and where do we draw the line? So I think art is so valuable in terms of how we interpret the world and where we draw lines and what's acceptable and what isn't, and where beauty is and where hell lies. I think it's important in distinguishing all those things. So I think if we lay all responsibility at the artist who produced it, then we won't be left with art. We'll be left with propaganda and drivel.
Wow, there's a lot to think about. A lot to think about there. Well, this is an off-topic question, but do you have a hard stop for this conversation, as in like time-wise?
Hard stop.
Yeah.
No, I'm good.
All right.
I'm
I'm
good. I've
going
got plenty
to.
of time.
I think we can talk for about 15, 20 more minutes, maybe.
Yeah, that's time.
I do need to message someone because technical difficulties. As we'll figure this out. Man.
You need a technician.
I want to come back to that, so I wrote a note down.
Cool.
What am I doing after this?
What time is it with you?
I'm helping someone post on social media.
Have you got a gig?
What'd you have for dinner, Will?
What did I have for dinner? I haven't eaten yet. Oh no, I had Mackey's.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I cannot hear you.
Oh, for God's sake. Can you hear me now?
Oh no, have I pushed a button? I can see you talking, but
Can you hear me now? Hello?
alrighty. Well,
Yeah.
Audio. I feel like I might have pushed a button. Did I push a button?
It's coming up on mine now I'm speaking.
AirPods. I can see me talking.
Can you hear
Can you
me?
talk?
Is it coming up on the right saying that you've got it?
You know, this is just what happens when.
Well, you wanted
Man,
to
I
do
feel.
this gig.
Oh, it's a beautiful thing, this learning process. And yeah, me being I feel so old on Twitter, man.
I don't know who it was who was talking about this kind of exact thing on Twitter the other day, that on Joe Rogan's like first episode, like his mic was just like not working the whole time, and you can go back and watch it. So that's kind of the same with this, or whether it's with Twitter, or like things just break and go wrong in the beginning, but at least no one's watching it.
Wow. Hey, you never know who's watching, you know? That's
Is that kind of scare you a bit?
Does that kind of scare me? It excites me to think about. I think it depends on what you're saying. I think I'm quite confident in the content that I've been putting out, in the sense that,
Yeah.
like, I know it's me and I know I have good intentions. And as long as I'm doing that and I'm helping people along the way, I can't, I haven't received any hate yet. Waiting for it.
Yeah.
Very excited for my first hater. Are you looking forward to your first hater, Will?
You know you've made it when people start hating on you. I think if you're saying something that everyone agrees with, then you're not standing out enough, and you're not going to have any fans.
Yeah, I do think that this is, we're talking about digital authenticity. And I do think it is time to put yourself out there and let people know what you stand for. I've, I've talked about the, that person quite a bit,
Mm.
and that yeah, Mr. Andrew last year ran a masterclass in branding and marketing, and despite
Indeed.
what anyone thinks about him, he put himself out there. He made a stand, and he connected with people who, millions of people. So like you never know, like, your opinion, there are millions of people who also agree with you, and those people are more willing to connect with you when you share who you are 100%.
Yeah, I think people have been crying out for that, especially in the modern age. Like I was saying before, people don't have that. People don't have. Whether you think Andrew Tate's a good role model, people don't have role models. A lot of young men don't have role models, and I think Andrew should be more accountable for the responsibility that he bears for that. Even though he didn't necessarily ask to become that person, he did become that person. And I think half the time he was playing a character, and half the time he wasn't. But the time when he was playing the character, he was still a role model for people. And I don't think he took that responsibility as seriously as he might have. But then if he did take it that seriously, then he wouldn't have been as big as he was. So depends what you're optimizing for. But that's why it's important that our space we kind of talk about authenticity in a way that whoever he came up with, that conversation wasn't being had quite clearly,
Yeah.
because it kind of keeps you in check. I think if, especially with me having it in my bio, like if I'm literally, it's my mission statement, then if I'm moving too far out of the way, then one, I'll catch it. If I don't, if I put something out and go, oh, that's wrong, or two, my audience or close connections, they'll go, that's not you. You can't say that, or you shouldn't be saying that, or do you want to think about that again? Because if you make it your statement from the beginning, this is what I'm going to try and achieve. I'm going to try and move towards becoming more me, whilst my time on the internet, then it keeps you in check. And I think that's really important.
Yeah. The same with like people like Joe. Uh, what if you are your authentic self and you start collecting a group of people and you become famous and everyone knows who you are? Do you think that, because I think Joe is just being Joe, and people are telling him that he shouldn't be talking about certain topics because he has a lot of responsibility now that he's collected this audience. But to not talk about some of the things that he's interested in would be disingenuous to who he was, to who he is.
And the reason why he started it.
Yeah. So do you think that like by the time you get there, like you do have a responsibility once you have a very large audience, but you still want to be your authentic self, and maybe some of that authentic self doesn't a lot. It's not. You know where I don't exactly know how to phrase this, but should you change who you are for the greater good once you have a responsibility, or should you be your true authentic self, even if it starts to hurt or damage or send people slightly the wrong way?
I don't think that individuals should subjugate themselves to the group identity or losing themselves in the greater good, because people die for their beliefs, and they should go out on their sword, and they should be curious, and they shouldn't be afraid to challenge narratives and belief systems and subcultures. Everything should be on the topic for discussion, no matter what your audience size is. As long as you're not inciting violence or inciting hatred, then everything has to be up for discussion. Otherwise, you lose the reason why you started in the first place.
All right, well, one day I'm going to clip this and we're going to come back to it when we are in 10 years' time.
Yeah, you need a studio by then.
You think? I think we'll have a studio in 5 years' time.
Do you think you'll be doing podcasting like long term?
I want to. I have these conversations a lot, like privately. The reason why I never started a podcast was for the main reason why I was not on social media for 5 years, which is just the fact that one, I went off it to try and focus. I was very addicted to social media quite a few years ago, and that was what I thought it was. But then I realized that it was really comfortable not having any judgment on my life on social media. And then I just did not come back because I did not want to be judged. And then I always wanted to start a podcast or talk to people about the stuff that I would talk about in private. But it's just putting yourself out there that it's a very interesting thing, putting yourself out there.
I think you're out there anyway, though. That's what I've kind of been speaking about. Like you exist online anyway. You have a digital footprint. You have an account. You exist online. It's just that you operate within the paradigm that people expect you to operate in. You post things that everyone else posts. You go to similar sort of events, and maybe you go to races and you put a picture on with your mates when you're on a night out or whatever. And it's just that the difference is the judgment comes because you're trying something in a different paradigm. You're taking an account which you have and you're flipping it and saying, I'm not just going to consume stuff that's given to me by these algorithms. I'm actually going to put something in there, and it's going to be something of value. And that's what people don't like, when people try new things and think outside the box and do something outside of the social norms. That's what scares people the most. And it's only fear that will keep you inside that box and keep you from creating and putting stuff out there. There's nothing really any more sad than an artist who's too afraid to put themselves out there, or art that never sees the light of day, or maybe what you think or what you write about or what you would be posting might change someone's life for the better, or maybe it will change a few people's lives for the better. But if you never put it out there, then you'll never know. And it seems to be a bit of a waste to not do it for the sake of fear.
Completely agree. I found that now that I am putting content out there, I'm I'm finding my social media usage it feels a lot more healthy to me. Like before, I was consuming and scrolling and just. But now that I've started to like put my thoughts out there and actively engage with people, it's been a very interesting experience. I'm enjoying social media, which is a new
Yeah,
change. Like
it's
it's it's giving me energy as opposed to taking it in a sense.
yeah.
So, oh man, well, beautiful stuff, Will. Hey, Will, thank you very much for joining the first content creator
Whoa.
economy content. I'm gonna edit this. Thank you for joining the first content economy podcast. What a privilege it is to have you on the first event. Same with Nana in the corner over
Yeah,
here. That was a privilege. Thank you very much for joining. Thanks to the tech difficulties and my camera, which stopped working.
nice.
Yeah, beautiful stuff. Will, where can people find you?
I think it's twitter.com/Will F.A. Connelly. Yeah, it is. Um, you can find me on Spotify if you want to listen to my podcast. That is Dining with Our Ancestors. And that's like historical fiction about ancestral diets in certain periods of time. But that's kind of been a bit slow because that takes quite a while to record. So I'm going to try and get one out this Sunday, but we'll see.
Well, thank you very much. It was a privilege and an honor. I don't know how
Speak
to
to you
end these podcasts, but what I'll just cut it. Anyway,
soon.
one thing I noticed is that because yeah, I don't see on your Twitter that you have a podcast anymore. I remember you had one. We talked about it on
Yes,
the first time
I
we had
can't
a
really fit
space.
it in unless I put my link tree back in. But I kind of want to get more newsletters subscribers, so I just put that in instead. You can't really.
Yeah.
I wish there was a few like tabs. You should be able to tag a podcast and a website link. That'd be really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I see
But
that.
yeah,
Yeah, because I remember you talked about it, and I saw it when we first talked. But now it's you have to pick a team, I guess.
yeah, I think newsletters probably going to be the way to go for now. I will tweet out about it now and again if I do a really good one.
Yeah, man, I'll listen to it. I'm into. I like food. It's my biggest obsession outside of Twitter and
That's like
trying to
Twitter.
build a business.
Did you have a cold
Yeah.
shower this morning?
I have not. No, I've been
Oh.
awake since 5 a.m.
Do you always get up that early, or just when you're doing like spaces and that?
I decided to change it up to 5 a.m. when I moved here.
Okay, how's that going?
I forgot what you said on my post last night, but I've always been a night owl. Like
Yeah.
I'll hang out in like Dallas until 3 a.m. in the morning. But like I have a business to build, so I got shit to do.
How's
And
that
I
going?
think it's going really well. I have signed up to very, very high ticket business coaching.
Oh, nice.
And so I did a course last year and I hated it. And so this time I meet with them every day. And
Really?
every day.
Jeez. How much
So
is
we
that
have
going
like,
to be? Jesus.
it's upwards of 10, Will.
What, per month?
No, 10 just for 12 months.
Oh, no, that's not too bad.
It's actually
That's
12.
decent. Are they within your niche, or is it just more general?
Yeah, I can send you the link to them or what they do. I think Cold Email Wizard is one of their names.
I think if I was spending 10,000 a month, it wouldn't be to a person called Cold Email Wizard. That's very unprofessional.
Very unprofessional, but yeah, he's
You
a
found
cunt.
like the value in it so far.
Yeah, like so essentially they have people who do exactly the service that I've done.
Yeah.
And I meet with them and I told him what I want to do and he said, no, that's not what you're doing. was like, this is what your offer is. This is exactly what you say. They have a video sales letter coach who was like coaching me how to make the sales letter. And he's so detailed. He'll be like, no, like what? Like, you just said that word. Don't say that word. Or say this word, but like mean it. Like you're not, I don't believe you.
I think that's between an idea and a plan, isn't it? Like Jeremy was saying, I think not even there's a dream and an idea. Like obviously the gap in between is you've taken action and you've made the account you need to make and you start tweeting and you start creating content. But like idea to plan is when you get someone on board who has walked that walk already, and then they just give you all this knowledge that would take you years to find out otherwise.
I know, man. It is. Also, the fact that I spent so much money is it's quite motivating.
Keeps you going. Like if you drop off, then you've not only like put yourself out there for no reason, but you've like wasted all that money.
I know, right? Yeah, highly recommended.
Yeah, I need to do that. I think I'm gonna get like Kieran Drew.
Yes, Ronnie has put me onto Kieran Drew.
Yeah, I'm gonna. He's actually really from near where I am in the UK, like 30 minutes away.
Oh, wow.
And I'm gonna get because he does. I don't want to do exactly what he does, but he comes more from like a genuine writing perspective and more introspective. And I think his business model, it's not about money; it's about writing about what you enjoy writing about and finding people that do the same, and then coaching people in a way that they can replicate it or do it in their own way. And I think he's a person like that who speaks to me the most. That if there's anyone out there that I want to speak to get all the knowledge from, be him, and then just kind of like model what I want to do based on what he's done, but then obviously do it my own way still.
Well, you're crushing it on Twitter,
man. Oh, thank you.
How does that feel?
I mean, it's interesting. I think when you first get going, like I've kind of already forgotten about the beginner grind where it's like you can't get up to like 100 followers. I think I've already forgotten about that, and now like if I look at my profile, like 700 people is quite a lot, right?
It's a lot.
Like
yeah.
if you put them in a room, like it's gonna have to be a big room. But you kind of lose sight of that, and it kind of get a bit impatient now, and kind of want to get up to the next level. Like it's Mario, and you're stuck before the boss mode, and you want to take Bowser down. That's kind of where I'm at. It's interesting and it's fun, and I'm still inspired to put stuff out there. But I don't know. It's kind of not in a rut at the minute, but I'm just waiting to level up.
What a beautiful problem to have, Will. A wise person once said something about slow growth. So.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what I'm taking now. Like, when did you make yours? Because I feel like we made our accounts pretty much similar time, right?
We did, yes, we did.
Like November.
I was December 12th, I believe.
You were quite a lot later than me, actually. I was like mid-November.
I don't know what month goes between the two, but enjoying it. Well, I'm going to jump onto I'm going to talk about marketing now, so it's very exciting stuff. But
have you got a call?
Yes, I have a call now, so I'm going to hop on it.
Enjoy.
But, thank you very much, man. Appreciate it, and don't forget us.
Oh, well, take care, my friend.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.